Hey, welcome back, everybody, to my podcast. First things first, I'm growing a beard. I may look a little bit odd compared to how I used to look, but I thought that's the time to do it. So why not? This episode is brought to you by proballs.com. If you're interested in researching and looking at statistics and player profiles, proballs.com is the place to be with over 70 leagues around the world. Also, newly added NCAA teams. So just check it out. This episode features Sergio Scariolo, as you can recognize according to the thumbnail that's up there. If you really are into basketball and really into tactics, really into communication, this was the episode to listen to. We talked about the invention of the Spanish pick and roll, which I've never heard before. The story, the background goes way back. So it's very interesting to hear that one. I was shocked. Also, the communication with players, the communication with stars or not stars, if he differentiates it or not, it's up to you to listen to it and see what he says about it. And also, if you enjoyed this episode, you will also enjoy the previous one with Boris Diaw. We talked a lot about lifestyle, traveling, coffee, all the good stuff. So check that one out as well. Thanks for being here and talk to you soon. Bye. Coach, welcome to my podcast.
You're welcome, and pleasure. Talk basketball with a great basketball guy as you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. After so many years competing against each other, now we get to communicate about basketball, talk basketball, and maybe reminisce a little bit too, because I have a question there as well.
Okay, I'm ready.
But first, I wanted to start. Do you know who the Celtics played yesterday?
Yes, I do.
The Raptors had to suffer again.
But they competed, man. They were there. They did it several times this year. Unfortunately, most of those times they couldn't make it. But yesterday also against a top team like the Celtics, they were not far. So I think they are on the right way. Probably a little bit farther than where they were imagining or thinking or planning to be at this point, but I think they are on the way.
Yeah, we are all in different paths right now, both franchises. So I think it's normal that right now, if we would have played 6 years ago, 5 years ago, it would have been a little bit different card set, a little bit different situation, I think. But in terms of last night and our situation, we're moving forward.
Definitely.
There's a lot of things that people can read about you online, about your achievements. And I always tell my guests, may the achievements rest in peace in this podcast, because I value the people first of all. So I want to talk to the people always as a person. And I was wondering, who is Sergio Scariolo off the court? Who is the person, Sergio? What defines you as a person? What do you do off the court?
Well, it's hard to define oneself. I mean, I consider myself as a quiet home-oriented guy. I like to stay home. I have a beautiful place where I live, and I actually enjoy it more than ever. I do sport. I love to do sport. I never stop. I mean, I'm kind of a little bit nervous ass. I always think into something different to do or new or study something or analyze or watch. I'm in permanent movement, but at the same time, I like to enjoy simple things like friends, family. I'm not fond of very sophisticated hobbies. Just do sport. I love golf. I love paddle. I watch sport, and of course, I watch a lot of basketball. That's basically my hobby.
Yeah, it's good when your hobby is your job too.
Definitely, yeah. I'm blessed.
Do you consider yourself a lifelong learner? If you say you're learning, and you because I feel like that also impacts the profession, whatever profession, not necessarily basketball, whatever profession you have, it impacts your job because of what you learn off the court, what you learn about history, about culture. It also, you can apply those things within coaching specifically. You can apply with how to handle players, situation, recognizing situations.
Definitely. I try at least. I try to learn. I try to learn every day. I try to learn from basketball people in watching basketball stuff, but mostly I try to learn from regular life situations, from TV, from commercials, from books, from quotes, from friends who make put out a thought, and you kind of digest it, and then you make something of it. I mean, I try to get something good every day from to learn something new from every situation I might step into.
I think it's in our nature to analyze, right? Analyzing, over-analyzing, thinking, and always kind of putting in more context in each situation. And then you start reflecting, and then you start recognizing situations in your job that you can apply those lessons to it, And there's a lot of things that because I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read books, but I listen more to podcasts. And there's a lot of things that come up. There was like, oh, I write it down because I can apply that to when I talk to a player, when I talk to a coach. And then there's certain things that can really cross culturally or crossing with different job professions. You can apply those things.
I definitely agree. And even something which has nothing to see with sport, with basketball. Several times I catch myself thinking, "Wait, this is a good way to communicate to someone else this different concept, but in a different way, in an original way, in a way which can, wake up their curiosity or attention in a kind of a less conventional way of communicating between basketball people."
So communication is a good hint, because I have a couple of things written down, and communication is obviously, everybody who listens to the podcast, they know that I'm a communication freak, but communicating with stars, and there's no secret in if we focus on the national team in Spain, there's been a lot of stars throughout each summer. The communication, do you communicate differently with stars than you do with role players? Do you approach the star a little bit different? Because there's also this argument between double standard or no double standard. And you kind of all in the same boat, but also not, because there's a lot of pull that you give to the stars, less so than to the role players. And then there's a lot of communication that has to happen away from the court. And I'm wondering of how you approach stars. What did you experience within your career?
Honestly, I don't feel I'm approaching different in the respect. I feel I am due to show to everyone basically the same. Of course, the let's say the topic, the substance of what you are communicating is different, and there is where you need to find the right way to communicate to a different person rather than to another one. I mean, I wouldn't put it the two groups or stars and role player. I think that every single player is different. Every single person is different, and you cannot make a group of stars thinking that all the stars think the same, or role players think the same. And even you might recall that a role player now used to be a star and was able to adjust to a different role, aging, and getting in a position where he's not able to do the same things physically, athletically, which he was able to do before. Now he adjusted to a different position, and I have a few of them. I had a few of them. I think the most important thing is to listen and to create the right atmosphere, to make them feel free to tell you what they really think, what they really feel, and not what you want to hear. If you learn, which because it's not easy, how to become a good listener, then you are in a good spot, because they will give you the keys to touch their inside chords and to get to their soul, get to their heart, and to be really efficient in your communication, because the motivation in many different let's say part of the communication You cannot treat people like everybody's the same. You have to understand what is really driving that specific person, what is driving that, and you can get there only if you are able to listen patiently, attentively, respectfully, and if you really create a relationship, an atmosphere between you and the guy, where, as I was saying before, is really feeling like he's free to open his heart and his soul, because he trusts you as someone loyal and as someone who never do a bad use of what he's going to tell you.
Yeah, that's something that when you say they know that you're listening, they know that the most important thing, I think, is not only for a player, but for a person to feel like they're understood, they're being heard. Then the respect level, also mutual respect, rises. Then in turn, they also play for you, not only for the team, but also for you, because they respect you as a person, first of all. So I think, like you said, it's more between two people communicating, not between the coach and the player per se, but it's two people talking with each other. And to me, the thing that sometimes stands out, or sometimes that I notice myself during practices, during games, it's a different dynamic, but during practices, looking for signals, and there's a lot of signals that you can see in the body language and the player's approach and the players communicating with others within the team. And I was wondering if you see those signals also, and what signals are important to you when you feel like you have to have a conversation.
Well, I try. Well, it's different in a private conversation rather than in practice, where basically the body language is more natural. I mean, there's no room for something too structured or purposely put out. Right there, they are running, they are jumping, they are shooting, they are playing defense, so they are really showing their natural face, right? In an individual communication, they might be a little bit more in a defensive stance, and they have more time to react in a more rational way. So you need to interpret those signals, and basically I try to look into their eyes, because their eyes. The eyes are a little bit more difficult to manipulate. I mean, you can use your head, you can use your shoulder, you can use your mouth, but the eyes are really the ones who always, I consider them as persons, right? Who always tell the truth. So I'm trying to establish that eye contact, and I'm trying to establish let's say an atmosphere where they feel that you are really carefully listening, that you are willing to learn from them, to find out what is in there, what is concerning them, what is pushing them, what is what is in their head, with the full guarantee that I will think over it, and I will really show them that I am really think about a serious and let's say an answer which makes sense, which can be not exactly what they would like to receive as an answer, because this is out of question. You can't, I mean, listen and be a good listener doesn't mean that you got to become someone who would give them, tell them they are right every time. But the respect you have to show, even when you feel that they are not right, must be always there, because what I think is really hurting relationship is the lack of respect. And sometimes you have to be careful, because you are not meaning to misrespect something, but there, when it's where it comes that people knowledge, you got to know if someone is more sensitive, more someone who get hurt easier, or someone who can stand more, can take the joke maybe at times, or maybe not in that specific moment. I mean, that's when you have to be extremely pay attention that what you want to express, it is what they will definitely receive as a feeling of the real meaning of the message.
So have you had a situation where you tell the player, let me think about that and I'll get back to you, when you have a situation? Yeah,
definitely, especially in practice. They want an answer in 3 seconds and a half about something which is important and which can have an impact on what they are doing, what we are doing as a team. So sometimes more than once I get to, hey, give me some time to think over, and I will get back to you later or tomorrow. And I always try to get back with something which is meaningful, which as I was saying before, not necessarily, no, you're right. I could come back and say, okay, I understand and I hear you, I heard you, and I know what you're saying that, but listen, this is my point of view, and this is the reason why I'm not fully agreeing with it, right? But it definitely happened, and I don't care. I don't feel like I am not at the age of the circumstances if I give an answer like that.
So, because there's a lot of young coaches also listening, and young and up and coming probably head coaches. When you were a young head coach and you had the first situations come to you, how long did it take you to kind of understand the significance of the answer, or the significance of the question rather? Because there's a lot of things that you do about trial and error, and if you don't think about it deeper on the below the surface, there's some mistakes that are hard to correct later on. So there's a lot of things that I'm wondering of when the moment came, or was there a moment, or was it just kind of like introspective communication where you were aware of what you were saying right away?
Well, it's different to establish a specific moment, but it definitely happened when you do a mistake, or when you are able to elaborate and analyze what you did, and you get to the conclusion that you did something wrong because you could have avoided that mistake. You could have avoided that specific mistake with the information and with the tools you had in your hands back then, not afterwards, because afterwards everybody's able to avoid mistakes. I mean, the real mistake is the one which you could have avoided given the previous circumstances before making that statement or making that decision. And if you are able to be honest with yourself, to be able to say to yourself, that was wrong, you missed an opportunity, you had to fix that because that need to be fixed, then is when that becomes a habit. And when it's a habit of re-elaborate what you have done, or analyzing with the kind of an objective view afterwards what you have done with that specific let's say filter, like, could I have done something different according to what I knew at that point, or that was making sense, but then unfortunately it turned into a bad decision, right? That kind of I used to to talk a lot with myself, and I think that's the best way to get better.
It definitely is. We're all self-critical, very, very much so. And because if you want to be, there's a sense of perfectionism also, because you always want to do the right thing, say the right thing, and nothing can be taken lightly. And I always say, and I would like to hear your opinion of how important it is to admit to mistakes to players, to say that it's your mistake, it was my mistake, and whether it's in the game and practice, and you kind of go back and I think that raises the respect level, honestly, that you, as long as you don't keep making the same mistake over and over. But I think that coaches also have to have the right to admit to mistakes.
I agree, but let me get back to the point. I think that yes, you need to be able to be self-critical. At the same time, you must be careful that your perfectionism doesn't become, I would say, a disease or a way to make it more complicated to yourself, to the players, to other people. Because you got to try to be correctly self-critical because I used to be over critical with myself, and then I learned to handle it in a better way, in a more objective way. There are people who might be not critical at all, which is another big mistake, maybe even worse, possibly. But the balance, even in this, is the right point where you have to aim to. And then I absolutely agree. I mean, I learned that when you do it, this is not something which should affect your self-esteem or your confidence or your credibility. Absolutely the opposite. As you said, you cannot make or repeat the same mistakes over and over. But especially in the personal relationship, telling that, hey, I did it in the right way. I said it in the right way. I would not mean that. My mistake, my fault. In a practice dynamic, you cannot keep saying my fault, my mistake. I mean, you have to be. Sometimes you have to turn your head to the other side, not only on player mistake, also on your own mistakes, and say, okay, let's move on. And maybe I will get back to the guy at the end of the practice and tell him, listen, remember when I told you that? It was a bad commentary, definitely. But saying that was especially in team meetings or in after game individual meetings, being able to admit that something didn't go well because of your fault, it's a good way to release pressure from the relationship, from the atmosphere, to put yourself in a situation where, okay, if you admit your own mistake, then is when you can ask for people to admit their own mistake. I wouldn't say then is when you can criticize other people, because that's easy. When you can get to a point where they can admit their own mistake in front of themselves, in front of the rest of their teammates, and in front of you.
This is a fascinating subject, and I could talk about this all day long because there's so many dynamics, so many thoughts that come to my mind. But there's some other things that I wanted to touch on, and there's something that maybe you've heard of, the Michelangelo effect or Michelangelo phenomenon, as it's called sometimes.
I've heard about that, but what?
It's a rare phenomenon, or it's something that I heard on the podcast. Like I said earlier, sometimes I learn things just on the go. And the Michelangelo effect or phenomenon, as it's called, is based on the story of when Michelangelo was sculpting the statue of David, and he got a big stone, and he saw David inside, and he was sculpting it knowing what's inside. So this is used as a relationship aphorism because of how the relationship between two people, and this is more related to a partnership, how they sculpt each other in a positive way. They do it with positive reinforcement because they see the good in the person, and they try to sculpt each other as they go along with positive affirmations. I believe this phenomenon or this kind of effect also exists in basketball coaching, because as soon as I heard it, it made me think about coaching, the dynamic between the coaches and the players, and how the Michelangelo effect can take place between each other. And I was wondering how the players formed you over the course of time, and how they impacted you, the shape of you as a coach.
Well, definitely. It's hard to answer about what I think I was able to do impacting us or sculpting players, because you should ask them, right? Normally they come back to you after when they quit, when they finish playing, and they come back and thanking you or telling you, hey, you remember last week, a guy whom I had in Real Madrid, Stefano Truia. I don't know if you remember it, but born in '69, is an Italian guy, funny guy, good pointer, national team player, former national team player. I brought him over to Real Madrid, and it was really not performing as we both were expecting. Not bad, but not great. And just a couple of weeks ago, he sent me a text after many years. I was not in touch with him because we get into a common friend, whatever. I say, Coach, sorry for not being able to perform as you were expecting from me. I say, wow, there was 23, 25 years ago. Like, this guy is still, and probably was kind of a cathartical. I mean, he took that off his stomach and his soul, and he was probably freeing up from that. No, but back to the point, for sure, I have been blessed by coaching a lot of great players, and this is why it's true that when you coach good players, you become a better coach. If you are able to learn, if you are humble enough to learn, if you are humble enough to let them express themselves, even if sometimes they can say something which you don't agree, or if they say some bullshit, because I consider myself as a good coach. I said many bullshit in my life, and great players can say bullshit as well. I mean, not because they are or they were a great player, they can say everything perfect. I mean, sometimes you can listen to them say, this is really, really fucked up. But at the same time, they feel free to tell you. And when they feel free to tell you, you will then, again, elaborate and catch what is important and what is useful, what is making you get better, or what is simply make you think, what is simply make you think about that, and maybe come back or come out with a different solution, different outcome, whatever. But once again, it's true that when the basketball IQ and the human quality of the people you have around is high, I mean, it's up to you to become a better coach or a better professional or a better person, because you have all your tools at hand. If you don't do it, it's because of the fault.
It's about reflection, and it's about being able, like the player goes back 25 years ago. I mean, when you're a player, I think there's a lot of ego in place to admit to things and to not to be able to perform that how do you want to. Then you kind of, the insecurities creep in. You don't want to admit to things. Later on, when you're maybe more secure, more in peace with the past, then it's a little bit easier to also talk about it. And then kind of you want to be at peace with the other person as well. And it's kind of probably good, soothing for the soul.
100%. One basic or crucial moment for me, my opinion, was when I get the feeling that I had put my ego in the right spot, and I could separate ego from confidence, because the line is thin. You need to feel good in what you do. You need to act with decisiveness, with the commitment. I mean, as a leader, you need to think over your decision, but when you make a decision, you gotta be able to sell them with full convincement and having the ability to carry people with you. But once again, it is about the right decision for the good of the team, and not for your personal good, because it is out of question that players have ego, and sometimes that ego doesn't allow them to perform and to act in the best way for the good of the team. But it's true that coaches have ego as well, and it is the difference between ego and confidence and self-security is that, in my opinion, ego is when you are really putting your own reputation, your own image on top of the team reputation, of the team, let's say, performance or result achieved. And listen, ego, if you learn how to handle your own ego, then you will be in a good position to ask to other people to own their own, to handle their own, and to tell them, this is a fucking outbreak of ego. So we don't want this in our team. But if you are putting yourself over and over in a position where they can say, hey, this is his ego speaking, not the person, not the coach, then it's going to be difficult to ask people to give up part of their expressing or establishing themselves within a group, because that's not exactly what is suitable and what make cohesiveness get in place for your team.
I totally agree. It's again, there's so much depth to it, and I wanted to move on to the next subject, because there's something that I also want to do the proballers.com segment with you, and let's reflect together a little bit to see what I definitely learned from that game, but also I'm curious to think what you remember from this game. I'm going to share my screen with you, that people can also check online. Can you see my screen?
I do. Yep.
Proballers.com.
Yeah, definitely, yes.
And I'm going to put in Spain national team, and we're going to go to a year that's significant to both of us. And this is the legendary box score of 2015 final that we played. And I would like to know your thoughts. Unfortunately, we don't have the halftime box scores, but in terms of this final box score, what do you remember? What do you usually look at the end of the game? And if you look at the box score, what do you remember from this game? What stands out to you?
Well, it's actually, it was a game where I think we couldn't have lost it against anyone, because the confidence we got from beating in the semifinal France in front of 27,000 people in an overtime game where we were struggling for most of the game, gave us really a kind of a strength, confidence injection that we were feeling like we couldn't lose any other game, right? So I remember that we were quite in control during most of the game, and we were able to we were quite concerned about their inside game, their like JV, Valanciunas, about also bigs who could post, like Kuzminska, Machulis. But it was a game where you really feel like you have a lot of respect for the opponent, so you don't get into the game relaxed, or in spite of being so self-confident after beating France, at the same time you have such a high level of respect for the opponent that you're not going to be messing around. You're going to be preparing yourself. You're going to be focused from minute one, and then you're going to basically end up winning that game. And regardless who's going to be the top scorer, of course, Pau played a great game. I remember that we had a few great action. Yul played a great game, had a couple of big baskets. So it was a final. So Chacho played excellent as well. He had a great handle of the situation, great playmaking. We were missing many players in that competition. We were without Margasol. We were without Calderon. We were without Ricky Rubio. There were many players out, but we figured it out. We found a way to have our core players and to build around something which actually worked.
Yeah, and I remember the assist numbers stand out the most, 19 to 14. I don't think we had big turnover numbers, considering it's a final. 13 turnovers is a lot. We missed a lot of free throws in this game. But the one thing that stands out is the assist numbers. And I remember that the three-pointers don't reflect of how many open shots we gave up also through the Spanish pick and roll, which I would like to get into. And just to go into a normal segment now, Spanish pick and roll to me was something in that summer that was not as present. I saw it throughout the games before that here and there. But I remember that in the preparation games leading up to the European Championship, we struggled with the Spain pick and roll. I don't remember which team it was against in the preparation period. But I was wondering, in that game, you specifically brought it out a lot of times with different variations, with a lot of situations where it was one time for a drive, then for a kick, and it was different situations you went out of to go into the Spain pick and roll. And that was the killer for us. And I was wondering, and how far back did you go back into the scouting to really analyze and see that was a particular weakness that we had?
Well, we thought, as I was saying, that the Valanciunas had to be a target for us, not in terms of his weakness, in terms of how important he was inside the team. And so we thought we had to give a hand to Pau in order to make him get the ball in a more comfortable situation, because in a pure 1-on-1, in the post, backing down against Valanciunas, he could struggle. So he got it much more in a motion, in a couple of lobs, back picks, and then forcing a switch, which freed a couple of 3-point shots. So we of course, when you find something new and you start using it, and I can tell you, when I put it first on the floor, that was by total hazard. I was in Hinky. They had to call it Russian because it was basically invented in Hinky back in 2009, when I had a situation where I needed to hide an extra non-shooter from our scheme, or because I didn't want a double side with a non-shooter. We could stand a non-shooter on the single side, on the side where the ball was driving, but we couldn't handle a non-shooter on the weak side, right? Because his man was going to be into the paint, and we were kind of basically struggled to hit back then our big guy Tima Mozgov, who was our very young, extremely young. I got it from the second team probably 2 months before. So I had this guy Ponkrashov, Mil Palacio. Both were good handlers, strong players, good drivers, not good shooters. And in general, I didn't have many good shooters into this. So I said, something which happened was that Ponkrashov, on a pick-and-roll by Palacio, was caught off guard. He was in the paint. And all of a sudden, he was seeing Mozgov running by him, and he hit his man, and a fantastic alley-oop came out. Palacio hit Mozgov with a fantastic alley-oop. I had never seen it before. So I said, wow, this is something which could work, because you can put the non-shooter right there, make it the back pick. So that was the very first time when I used it. And then, of course, you had to start elaborating and changing and putting people in the right spot. Now we are using it more on having the guy setting the screen, moving out on an empty side instead of a corner side. I mean, then you do many different things, and many people work on it, and many great coaches got even better for them. But just to tell you that sometimes something which it became kind of I would say, a main action of modern basketball can really come out from nothing, from a really casual situation. You have to be able, that's true, to get it, to see, to watch it, The guy, I think he didn't even want to set the back. I think the guy kind of protect himself from the big guy coming strong on him. He said, wow, he's hurting me. And that turned into a very strong back.
Wow. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is the invention of the Spain pick and roll. That was, wow. What a story. I did not expect that one. That's great. That's something that, because I was thinking of, a lot of times coaches see things from other coaches and then they do their own version out of it. Like the Brad Stevens out of bounds play, sideline out of bounds play, where he lobs it over the top and then there's a screen on top. He saw it somewhere else, and but it became the Brad Stevens out of bounds play. He will admit to it that he saw it somewhere else, and it's something that you always kind of steal from each other, but then accidentally those things happen as well. It's just a matter of recognizing it, reflecting on it.
I will tell you another story which you will like. I think it was in the 95 probably, first the start of the 95 season. And we had a player, you might recall, was Enzo Esposito. He played for the Raptors. He was playing for national team, or played for Caserta many years. I was coaching 42 de Bologna. And this guy was great shooting a three coming off his, let's say, left side, and was great curling and going to the hoop coming off his right side, right? And we were kind of trying to find a way not to be so predictable that when we were setting screen on that side, it was going to curl so people could, shoot the gap, for example, or vice versa on the other side. So during the whole summer with my assistant coach, we were thinking, and then we came out with the diamond play, with the let's say double ocean play, and we were so proud of it. I don't know if someone. I mean, the Spanish pick and roll, I'm quite sure, but about this, I'm not really sure. I had never seen it before, but I cannot say if someone before did it, right? What we had to put it, let's say we hide it during the whole preseason. We had to play Milan, coached by Mike D'Antoni back then, with Antonello Riva, another great player, great shooter, great shooting guard, who was exactly the same. Great shooter on one side, great driver on the other. So the very first play, we put up our diamond play. In the very first play, they put up the diamond play. And we were like staring to each other. We were laughing as crazy, because it was like, man, we were so proud, so jealous of our invention, and you guys were doing the same shit. And now the first play, the first game of the season, you're putting up. So basketball. There are so many great minds who are working on it that you cannot take for given that someone somewhere is not doing what you are doing, maybe in a better way.
Yeah, that's hilarious, because we both try to hide it and you both have to recognize in the game.
That's it.
We still have a little bit of time. I have one more topic that I wanted to address, and then I will shoot some quick hitter questions at you. You have still
sure.
a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we have 10 minutes.
Yep. Okay. So the defensive aspect of the game, because we talked about offense a lot now, but the defensive aspect of the game is, to me, very intriguing because of Eurobasket 2 summers ago, and everybody was talking about it. And I was always envisioning those things of implementing different defenses to mess up the other team's offensive rhythm, not to let them catch a rhythm, to catch him off guard, whether it's zone 2-3 zone, 3-2 zone, box and one, and in different pick and roll defenses. What do you think? And people who don't know what I'm talking about, if they watch the 2022 Eurobasket, they will find out. But what do you think is the limit of how many defenses can you implement? What do you base the limit on the roster that you have? Do you see the capacity of the players, how much they can handle? Or do you see it in a simpler way that you just have it 1-2 possessions and they don't have to know it perfectly, but just to have it in your system is fine? So you can have, because most coaches are afraid to put in more than 3 different defenses, but if you put in many differences for short spurts, I think you can have a lot.
Well, I think that the the answer is going to be a little bit in between. I mean, you need to work on something, and you cannot work on 5 different things thoroughly. At the same time, when you have a mature team, especially a tactically mature team where people are used to do different things on defense, and they did it maybe with their club teams, or when they did it in the, for example, we as a national team, we have a kind of a pyramid where we start with the, under 12, and we build over. We add something, the same system, the same principle, aiming to the point where they will get from the U20, U22 to the main team, to the national team, with a good baggage of stuff, or let's say the system we are using with the main team already digested, already trained, already repeated and practiced it, and basically master it in a way, right? So when we feel that we can already count on a good number of players coming out that system, that several years or working on in the same direction, then it's true that you don't need hours and thousands of reps to feel confident to use the defense during a big game. The point is that you need to have, I think, the ability to put in 5 minutes in a day, 4 minutes in another day, maybe a shed drill and a shoot around. Not investing thousands of tons of minutes, high volume of time, but refreshing it, putting a new concept. And at the end of the day, when you talk about an alternative, let's say a zone defense, you have to work about what to do on the post catch and what to do on pick and rolls, according to who's running, who's handling the ball. This is what you have to be absolutely strong and solid in knowing how to guard these actions. Then there will be several other possibility cuts and overloads and whatever, and you have to figure it out, and you have to maybe prepare it really quickly in the morning of the game, the day before the game, to adjust a little bit, picking up something or making a little adjustment and bringing it from a 3-2 to a 2-3 for a while. Of course, our basis on defense is a 3-2 because we feel that we have 3 players, a small forward, who can really fit into that. Probably, I mean, we have to be flexible to understand our personal skills, right? And then the other defense, which can be boxing one at a time, triangle two at a time. You need to know how to guard those 2 situations, or 2 situations, but of course, pick and roll has different nuances depending on who's guarding the ball, where. So, and if you work a little bit on them, basically every couple of days, you might be. For example, when we were that good, we were preparing something specifically against US team, and we were start practicing it from very early in the training camp, and never using it during the training camp, during the competition. We knew that was what we were feeling that could work against the US team, and we were able to bring it up. But we were putting some minutes every now and then to practice. And I cannot tell you that it worked. Probably it worked to make those real games, like losing by 6, losing by 7, but you don't have proof of the opposite, right? But to tell you how we think about, let's work on something which is not taking away too much time of your main concepts, or your man-to-man offense or your man-to-man defense, which will always make the difference, which will be always be the real columns of your structure, of your building. But you can, especially when you are, like you mentioned, the 2022 European champion, we were feeling like we were 8 or 9 of the predictions in the the polls before and the what people were saying, and even extra. So we knew that we had to do something different to compete and to be able to keep a high level of competition. We couldn't say, okay, let's be ourselves, let's go face to face against anyone, and for sure we get smacked hard in our face if we didn't find a way to for example, against Lithuania in that competition, we felt that we get a lot from our kind of a alternative other defenses, but at the same time probably we were one action short from taking it out. The box and one we were running it against Grigonis, because we were winning by 2, and they got us, and they brought us to overtime with the putback, with an offensive rebound. And for sure, if you play man-to-man, you control better the box out and the individual responsibility of the defensive rebound. Sometimes it's a matter of when to put it in, when to take it out, and there it's a matter of feeling it during the game, and you can make mistakes. That was a mistake. I had to my last play, even if it worked so well that far, had to be a man-to-man possession, defensive possession.
Interesting. So you base it on the foundation that you have throughout the junior system, and then you have defensive packages that you can add on depending on the situation, depending on the roster. Sorry about that.
Even depending on which one is going to be the game, because you know that in a competition, that more or less against that opponent at that point, you will probably have a high odds that that game will determine most of the success or the not success your team will have in that competition.
You ready for my ATOs, my quick hitters for you? I'm going to throw them at you. The first thing that comes to your mind that you know or you feel from your experience. Expectation from your assistant coaches during the game.
Well, I want to have a very, very established and disciplined and organized roles. I mean, I have my defensive assistant coach, which is on my right, and is right in front of the team, and he's barking and yelling and saying that what they have to do. I mean, he's a screamer, but of course he's a great coach. He's a big part of our defensive plans. Then I have my offensive coordinator right on the other side, and is basically suggesting me plays and adjustment to the rotation scheme we established before the game. And then we have our third bench assistant coach, who's basically in charge of the special situations, is basically calling up special situations on the BOB, on the SOB plays, on when the clock stops, and he's also good, very good enough to give us suggestions in the other areas. But this is basically what we have. Then we have a couple of more people behind the bench to have a live stat of our and our opponent's situations efficiency, how our pick-and-roll defense is working, when how many possessions what they did when we were running this defense or that other defense, what we did against their specific this, and which action work, which set plays work. I mean, the other two are basically during the game, especially for the halftime coaches huddle and meeting with the team at the halftime. This is a more or less during the game.
Biggest lesson you learned from the NBA?
That you can coach and prepare your team without overloading players.
Biggest sliding door moment of your career, where your career could have went one way or the other?
I had a few. Definitely, I had a few. That actually, for sure, when I decided to move to the NBA, was a great move, because I responded to the feeling of my guts, which were saying you need to go into a full immersion in a game, to forget about agents, journalists, managers, families, and all what is around players. Just you need to merge to dive deep into the pure game of basketball, because when you are a head coach, you have to take care of so many things, and having been a coach for so many consecutive years, you need a time where you go back there.
After so many years, what is still hard in this profession?
Well, I think when you feel that you are not on the same page with the player, that's a hard feeling. That's a bad feeling. For how much you try, for how much that something is wrong over there. I didn't have it too often, honestly, but when you have it, it's hard. It's bad.
And the last question that I ask every guest that everybody knows, and everybody knows it's from Tim Ferriss. Your favorite failure from your career that you despise, but you learned the most or the biggest lesson from, and you look back on it with one happy eye and one crying eye?
Well, it was not a loss. It was a way of handling a situation with the player. This guy was a close friend of the owner, and I hoped the rest of the players might understand the situation and be able to be flexible in terms of treat this guy different. It was very, very, very early in my career. And that was wrong. You can't ask other players to be mistreated or treated not in an equal way from the main principle point of view. Be on time, respect, eat the same stuff. I mean, of course, players are not the same. They don't make the same money. They don't have the same playing time. They don't have the same actions, the same shots. This is something which basketball people understand. What I learned is that they will never understand that human beings can be treated a different way within a group, from the human point of view, from the behavior point of view. And I never repeated the same mistake, and I think I will never repeat the same mistake for the rest of my career.
Coach, muchas gracias. Grazie mille. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Benes. Take care.
Take care.
All the best to our listening coaches.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Bye-bye. Take care.